Hey, before the beginning of this video, I want to apologize. This video has been delayed. This has been recorded a few weeks ago at this point. I know we're about 10 games into the regular season for most teams, but I did want to get these videos out. I was having computer issues, thus I wasn't able to upload it. It just kept crashing on me. So, hope you enjoy the video. Expect more content. I got the computer fixed, and let's get ready to go. I'm Captain Paul. That's Fajardo. What's going on there, Fajardo?
Not much. Just chilling.
Well, we're going to finish up the Atlantic Division. Little tardy, a little behind schedule, but hey, we got it done with at least the first week of the season. So let's get into the fifth team in the Atlantic Division, the Montreal Canadiens. So Montreal has some promise here. They're looking like to turn around here. They want to be something like this. They have zero cap space. They're using every single thing in cap. They're using 11 mil in LTIR, a lot of that being the price. So let's kind of go into the breakdown right now. Their highest paid forward is Nick Suzuki at 7.875 mil. Really good young center. Locking him up for a long term at that cap hit is pretty good. So you're going to have him for pretty much through his prime. You have Brendan Gallagher at 6.5. You have Sean Monahan at 6.3, and Josh Anderson at 5.5. Going down to defense, the notables here, you have the highest earner on there is only a 3.5 with David Savard, solid defenseman, but a lot of youth movement here with the Montreal Canadiens. You got Gould, Harris, Arberks. I'm not going to even try to pronounce that last name. And, you got Chris Weidman here on a minimum contract. You see some younger guys, a lot of cheap contracts. And then in net, you have Jake Allen making 2.875 mil, Montembeault with 1 mil, and Caden Primo at 809. And obviously the notable here that's out of this would be Carey Price, who's a $10.5 million goalie when healthy. He's already 35 years old. He's been out this will be his second year he is out. So it's pretty safe to speculate that he might be done with hockey altogether. So in lieu of Carey Price, Jake Allen's a solid goalie. But let's go into the forwards and the depth chart here. We're going to have to go obviously off of today's this season's stat total. But you got Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Sean Monahan. Second line, you got Dadonov, Dvorak, Gallagher. Third line, you have Drouin, Kirby Dach, Anderson. And then you have their first round pick, first overall pick, Blasovsky, Evans, and Hoffman on the fourth line. I think this up front has quite a bit of talent. You know what I mean? I like what I'm seeing here. A lot of youth. Caulfield's got a lot of upside. He's already got 3 points in 3 games. Suzuki, 3 points in 3 games as well. I think Monahan there on the right side. That should be an interesting look. Dadonov, if he can kind of have a bounce back year. Dvorak's actually, he's kind of historically has been kind of up and down. But I like the pickup of Kirby Dach because there's still potential there, I find. Maybe he can develop into a second-line center. People were at one point when he was drafted maybe potentially a first-line guy. Maybe that's still there. He's a big body, good presence. Jonathan Drouin, I just think he is what he is at this point. Kind of like a middle six, more of a bottom six forward. And I am surprised, though. Maybe I shouldn't be as surprised, but Slavkovsky, like their first overall pick, I'm surprised they have him slotted where they do. Fourth line, only played 10 minutes with Evans and Hoffman. I think for forwards, just there's some of their parts probably average. What are your thoughts?
First of all, with that top line, I think it's a good opportunity for Monahan to find his groove, right? Because he was set to be a top prospect quite some time ago. He's never quite come to fruition. But with this team having so much youth, maybe he can find his legs and get back to the promise that he showed in the past. and putting him with two really good players, including the new captain Suzuki. I mean, yeah, it's Suzuki, right? That is the new
Yeah.
captain.
I
Yeah,
believe so. Yeah. I'll double check.
yeah, it's Nick Suzuki. Yeah, for sure. How you call it? I think that he'll find his way with his experience and everything. I think he'll probably elevate his game to the next level. So as long as he can
Yeah.
stay healthy, right? Because that's been one of his Achilles heels throughout his career is his health, right? I think he's coming back from a hip injury that he sustained a couple of seasons ago, and
Yeah.
it's been on and off, and hopefully he can find it now. The second line, it's kind of interesting. Some older guys. Christian Dvorak kind of found his way last season. So it's one of those where you kind of know what you're going to get from these guys. Grind out, but they can score. With the third line, you're right. With Doc, I think there's still so much growth that can happen with that player right there, right? Putting him on with Druin, who like you said, he's very consistently in the same place. Him, Josh Anderson, kind of looking to find his way this season and improve on what he was doing. And then the rookie, he almost got sent down to the A.
Yeah.
But towards the end of the preseason, he was able to really fight and really, earn that spot. Like, he won his spot. He didn't get it handed to him just because he's a number one draft or anything like that. Like, he really fought and pushed, and he got it, right? He earned it. So now that he's here, it's going to be about him growing and really finding his way into the NHL and this level of play, right? And they put him with some older guys, some veterans, some guys that have been around for a little bit, and said, all right, well, if you're gonna grow, we're not gonna give you a lot of minutes, which is great because you're gonna give him time to develop, and you're not putting a lot of pressure on him. One of the things that a lot of teams do very, very badly is they get a high draft pick and they throw him in the fire. Yes, there are some diamonds that come out of that, but 95% of the players that get thrown in situations like that take much longer to develop. But in this scenario, you're putting him on the fourth line, you're letting him come in and slowly, work into the system, grow and build. I think it's a smart move for them, and especially because he earned this spot, it wasn't just given to him. Right, so I think that's a really good look for them. I think they're gonna be exciting. They're gonna be one of those teams that you're not gonna be able to take your eyes off. They're definitely one of those teams that they're just gonna bring it every night. They have the youth to do it, and it's just gonna be very, very interesting to see who's going to produce. Because honestly, you have your top line who you expect to produce. But after that, the next three lines, it's kind of like, it looks like they can rotate. Like, one line will be a big line one night, then another line will step in the next night. So it might be a good rotation for them. And, things like that, growing a team like that is good because you're getting them used to a playoff mentality where you're going to have to use all four lines, right? So I think that this is going to be really good for them. I don't think that, that it's going to carry them to the playoffs, but, I mean, if everything clicks, maybe.
I have a question before we go to defenseman. Do you think with Slav, do you think it would have been better off just sending him to the AHL to get him more minutes? Because the one thing I do worry about a guy this green, guy this much potential, being only 18 years old, I know it's only been a few games, but averaging that little minutes, I mean, couldn't you be stunting his growth?
I mean, you can, but he seems to be above the AHL caliber, right? And I think that was the main thing that they were concerned about is like whether he can just jump right in or whatnot. And then after, even at the beginning of the preseason, it was kind of like, he didn't play great, but it looked like he got his legs and it looks like he figured it out. So it's one of those like I said, he has to really play hard to hold his position. He's got it. Now you gotta maintain it. And I mean, Martin St. Louis. I mean, he knows how to play, right? He's been kind of all over the place when it comes to being looked at differently, right? Because he was always a small guy. He always had to fight hard and all those things and whatnot. So maybe he can guide him the right way. Because sometimes it just takes a coach, or a GM or something like that can guide somebody in the right way. I mean, the guy's a big boy. He showed a lot of skill. He didn't finish a lot and all those things, but he showed the promise of being able to grow in the system in the now and not in the tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm one of those guys that I just like, young players, if you're going to have them up, you're going to call them up. I mean, maybe he'll kind of expand his role further in the season. I don't think you should ever just hand a guy a job. But sometimes I always think it's beneficial. Like, is the AHL a step down? Obviously. But you are playing against men. And it kind of, I think it does prepare some guys. But, maybe his role, will expand further along the season. Let's get back to let's get into the defense here. I mean, it's a very, very green defense. Very green. You got Caden Gould, only 20 years old.
Yeah,
you have David Savard. He's kind of vet. He's a very steady defenseman. You know what I mean? Like, he's a solid guy.
Yeah.
Jordan Harris, another young guy. Jonathan Kovacevic. He's 25, right? So kind of entering his prime. He was claimed off waivers. Arbor and Chris White. Like, Arbor's only 21 years old, 3 games played, 1 assist, 1 point thus far this season. Chris Weidman, a solid bottom 4 pairing guy. As of right now, it looks like they're kind of protecting Arbor a bit because he's the youngest guy. No, he's the second youngest guy on this. But it does look like Gould and Savard are kind of pulling some big minutes together. And it's kind of hard for me to judge this, right? Because for full transparency, some of these younger guys I just haven't seen play a large sample size. I mean, you can look into the scouting reports, kind of get a general idea of what they could potentially be. Due to that, just because I think their youth will lead them having up and downs, I think it's going to be kind of maybe a average to below average depending on the night with these guys, because defense is one of the harder positions to learn in the NHL. There's a lot of responsibilities. There's knowing when to transition. There's knowing to pinch and when to stay back, how to take proper lanes away. There's really like an art to playing defense at the NHL level. So I think it's going to be hard for me to kind of gauge them because of that. I'll say like an average to below average decor, just depending on the night.
Mm-hmm. I gotta agree. There definitely are a lot of young pieces. I mean, Bagul has been looking very good. How you call it with Savard, who's a veteran. The interesting pair would definitely be the 2 younger guys, 25, 22, right? And seeing if they're able to run and gun with these guys, right? Like, we know the forwards have the potential to have a lot of offensive firepower. Now, defensively, can these guys, hold and maintain and do what they got to do, right? I think that it's going to be one of those. It's going to be a trial and tribulations, a lot of tests here, a lot of tests there, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they develop.
I mean, I think as a Canadian fan, you got to be excited because you have a lot of offensive young guys that should be developing really nice. I mean, Kirby Dach could develop into a top 6 center. This decor, have a lot of young guys, and if everything kind of hits well, you could be looking at having a very good defense for a very long time here with the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, for such a historic franchise and a franchise that has a rich tradition of winning, even speaking as a Bruins fan, it's always good when the Canadiens are a good team. It makes the NHL, in my opinion, far more entertaining. It's like in any sport. Like, for example, when the Yankees are bad, it's like, you hate the teams, right? You don't want them to beat your team. But it's always good when, it's just good for competition, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Let's go into goaltenders here. And this is where... so Jake Allen is... a healthy scratch. So I'm going to actually start with Jake Allen. He's a healthy scratch for personal reasons. He had to take a step. But Jake Allen thus far 2-0 on the season. 1-1 on the season, a 943 save percentage, 2.03. Jake Allen is a phenomenal goalie when he's on his game. I felt like ever since that the Blues, when Martin Brodeur went there and kind of helped Jake Allen along, he kind of turned a corner in his career because he was kind of known as a Jekyll and Hyde goalie. And I think he was kind of underappreciated with St. Louis. I know Binnington won them a cup, but Jake Allen was a solid goalie there for years. And I actually especially since the Carey Price injury, that was the best deal that Montreal ever made. People looked at it very oddly because you're paying two goalies quite a bit of money. But really looking back on it, without Jake Allen, this team would be kind of sunk. They wouldn't have really a proven starter. So I think Jake Allen's an above average NHL starter. And when he's in a hot streak, bro, you can rarely find a goalie as good as him. But then you got Samuel Montembeault, 0-1 on the season, 897 save percentage, 3.10 goals against. Small sample size, but Montembeault, he can be an okay backup. Caden Primo, younger goalie, 23 years old, hasn't played yet this season. He was drafted in 2017. I think they're probably expecting Primo to take a step up eventually. But being only 23, they're probably going to give him some more time. Montembeault's a little bit older, should be entering the prime of his career. Without Carey Price, I think this, if Jake Allen will be back relatively soon, I think they're an average tandem. I don't know if I have enough faith in Montembeault. Just personally, I don't know if Primo is going to be there ready to take the next step. What did Montembeault do last season? I'm actually going to make sure. Yeah, he had in 38 games, he had an 891 save percentage, 3.77. And that's where I think for the Canadiens is Primo going to take the step up, or will Montembeault actually improve upon last season? I know the Montreal Canadiens weren't a great team. I don't think that'd be a stretch to say. But, Primo, when he called up last season, 12 games, an 868 save percentage, 4.62 goals against. In Laval, he did okay. It's going to come down to if their backups can hold water. I have full confidence Jake Allen can make the saves he needs to most nights. Maybe he'll have the occasional off night. But when those backups play, they need to give 30-plus games of solid effort, right? Of a solid performance. Because if not, this team's already kind of young. So you could, not to ramble on and on, you could rattle these young defensemen and not make them feel confident if they're not confident about the guy behind them. So
yeah, I definitely think it's a below average goalie tandem without Jake Allen.
Yeah.
Right? So until he gets back, they're below average. And it's going to be difficult for them to be able to sustain offensive pressure and score as much as the other team when your goalie is going to be struggling, right? You hope that Primo can make a step up, but even with that, right, you still need Jake Allen. Obviously, Price being out 2 seasons in a row, obviously we all think that he's pretty much done. But yeah. Montembeault and Primo as your starter and backup, I don't think that's going to work. I think that's going to hinder them. It's going to set them back. So whatever Jake Allen needs time for, hopefully he can get it all straightened out and fixed very soon to actually give them at least an average goaltending situation where it would help the team solidify themselves a little bit better and really just be able to go forward, knowing that you have someone who's competent at making the saves back there.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that you need to have someone that you can rely on night in, night out to kind of give you a quality performance. And I don't know if they have that in the backup goalie situation, to be completely honest with you. So let's go into the standings and how they did last season. Obviously, it wasn't so great. They finished last in the Atlantic, 82 games, obviously, 22 wins, 49 losses, 11 overtime losses for 55 points. They fell 18 points behind the next up team in Ottawa. Goals for, not good. Goals against, not good. They had the lowest goals for and the highest goals against. That's not a good means of success.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, when I look at this team, I think there's been some improvements, but I also think there's other teams in this division that has done more. I actually envision Montreal finishing eighth again. I'm not saying that because they don't have a future. I think they're young, but I think due to their youth, they're going to struggle at times. I mean, I think their top end talent with Suzuki and Caulfield and stuff like that, there's going to be a lot of room to explode offensively. But I don't know right now if they're ready to take that next step. So I'm thinking like seventh or eighth, but most likely eighth for me.
I have to agree. I have to go on the same page as you on that one. 7 for 8 for me. It they're in a, and that's not a bad 8 either, right?
No,
Like,
not in this division.
you know what I mean? Like, being a bad 8 in this division is not really being bad. There's a lot of competition in this division, and they have the youth right now, right? And right now it's more about building it properly and not rushing the process. I know Montreal fans are going to want to see their team win and win and win, right? And that's going to be difficult. You can't put that on the kids right now, because you put that on the kids, and you're gonna hinder their growth, right? Or you're gonna force the Montreal franchise to start looking for guys to help them win now. When you start doing that, you get rid of all this youthful talent, and it could hinder you in a way where these guys may not hit the pinnacle that they're supposed to hit. They may not reach the talent level that you're expecting from them, right? And then what happens? You trade them off. They end up on another team. They end up on Boston. They end up on the Rangers. They end up on Tampa. They end up on Florida. And what happens? They fucking blow up. They become a superstar. And you're like, we got rid of this guy? Then you look bad at the franchise. You're like, oh, why'd you do this? Well, if you would have not been complaining so much, they probably would have kept them and grown them properly and had that same talent on your roster. So, Canadian fans, this is not a bad 8. Be patient with your team. Grow. They may surprise us. They may get higher than what we're saying. They may find a way. But your goalie situation is really going to take a lot of that away. And that's on top of the youth, situation where a lot of times you already have to give, take away some of that promise, just because you have a lot of kids that are still going to have those growing pains. So, for Montreal Canadian fans, don't be mad at us. It's just, it's a good look for you guys. Even if you do come in 8th, you have a lot of things here to build on. And, at least this season is more of like an observation season. Like, okay, what worked, what didn't work? What needs to get better from the guys that we have, that we're growing here, to see where you go. It isn't like you have a full set roster, like these are the guys that are going to win it all, and then they go and they come in 8th. That's a bad 8, right? You're in a good situation, and I think that I think that Montreal fans, listen, even if you come in last, don't be upset. Just know there's a bright future, and you should be very excited about that. Again, they can surprise everybody if they find their way and they click early. It's anybody's game.